And we're gathered here for a historic occasion. For the first time in over 30 years, a movie theater in Southern California will be screening the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and Mike Schlesinger will not be in the front row. Which is not to say he won't be with us. The next hour or so, we're going to fill this room with as much Mike Schlesinger as we possibly can. Mike liked to sit in the front row whenever he could in the movie, for the same reason we all want to be as close as possible to people, places, and things we love. Mike loved movies, all kinds. I think he even liked the bad ones because that gave him something to be outraged about. For reasons you'll hear about over the next hour or so, I'd like to think of him as one of the best friends movies ever had. That's in addition to being one of the best friends of most of us ever had. When we lost him earlier this year, a lot of us all had the same thought at the same time. Let's get a movie theater, spend some time talking about Mike, this lovely man, and then show the film he called the greatest movie ever made. If you don't agree, keep it to yourself. Don't take advantage of the fact that Michael won't be here to tell you why you're wrong.
At the beginning of 1998, Michael told me that he was being promoted to the VP of Sony Pictures Repertory and he was going to need an assistant. He asked me if I was interested. Honestly, at the time, I didn't even know what repertory was, but I knew that I could work with Michael. He was definitely the nicest person in the department, so I eagerly agreed. Once I was settled in working for Michael, I came to find out what exactly repertory meant, and it was cooler than anything I could have ever imagined. We got to sell the great Columbia classics to movie theaters. Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Strangelove, Easy Rider, the Bud Bedekers, All the Noirs, the Three Stooges, I can go on. And Columbia didn't even have the best library, but we had a good one. Not only did we get to sell great movies, which were played in theaters, but we were also charged with exploiting the Columbia Library in other creative ways. We released Columbia's 75th anniversary tribute, where Michael created a program of 10 films on new prints, yes, prints, that we offered to theaters nationwide. We released the 40th anniversary of Lawrence of Arabia. Michael was so good at what he did. He convinced the powers that be to allow him to print at least 5 70mm prints of Lawrence of Arabia. Each print was 9 gigantic reels. It was a lot of film, a lot of money. It always awed me what he was able to get done.
Mike Schlesinger changed my life. Imagine a Sony executive picking up a little black and white movie about a reanimated skeleton designed to look like it was made for little when it actually was. We became fast friends, and Mike fell right into our little company. By Trail of the Screaming Forehead, he'd taken a producer role, though he was still at Sony, so it was under the name of Michael S. Singer. More importantly, Mike became family. When one of our films was temporarily taken out of my creative hands, I tried to remain calm, but it was Mike who embodied my rage. He vented everything I was feeling as though the assault was on him personally. This was Mike's great empathy. Of course, many phone calls would begin with him being pissed off about this or that, and he would vent, usually ending with, "But what are you gonna do?" Followed by, "So, how are you?" Mike was a genuine listener, only too ready to express himself on your behalf. Despite complaining, he was a positive guy that you'd want on your team. He'd say, "Well, as my mother always said, you won't know until you try." Or, "It couldn't hurt." Or, "What do you got to lose?" And no mistake, he was also the original shirt off his back guy. We shared a love for the second greatest movie ever made, which, as many of you know, was
1, 2, 3.
The octopus. Only one H in show. I never understood that. The octopus. Whenever Mike name-checked it on social media, I made sure to have his back, because, man, people really went to pounce on that crazy-ass thing. Mike and I referred to him as the dot connector, because he had an uncanny ability to hook up the right person to the right project, like bringing in composer Christopher Caliendo, or the great Dick Miller, or most unlikely of all, the Manhattan Transfer, so they could sing a little song about predatory foreheads. Mike and I did have some tonal differences regarding comedy. He frequently referred to his Mel Brooks to my Woody Allen, not that we thought we were on that level by any means. But I treasured the common ground. Mike's favorite script of mine, TV Life, was a mockumentary about a TV producer looking back at his career of horrible TV shows. He really wanted to make that one, and we had a reading with the late Len Lesser in the lead, with Mike carrying much of the playing himself. He was very proud of his Rondo Award as producer on our back-to-back releases of The Lost Skeleton Returns Again and Dark and Stormy Night. By then, he'd left Sony and was able to produce under his own name. It pleases me to no end that our little company played a major role in Mike's decision to finally quit Sony and pursue his dreams of writing and directing.
I never met anybody who didn't like Mike. I mean, even if he may have been having countertops with people, they were usually executives, so we all understand that. And there was just something about his presence that, I mean, this was a guy who truly loved movies and lived them and wanted to make them and got to make them. You have to realize that the films that he created, the shorts and the feature, he paid for himself. I mean, he was a true indie. He didn't have to answer to anybody. These are from his id. And anybody who knows Mike, who sees his work, can see, for good and ill, Mike's personality throughout. And if and when you get a chance to see Rock and Doris, you'll see that it's a channel into Mike's id. It's such a personal movie that it seems like almost no one would understand it except a friend of Mike. And you'll see when you see it. I mean, it's a true labor of love. You know, one of the things about Mike was that he imagined that everybody else loved movies as much as he did. And one of the things he railed about when he was in his last days in the hospital was that he was appalled that the young nursing staff had never heard of Three Stooges. This seemed to cause him more service than his pain and his illness and all that. He was just so astounded that this could be. But one of the things he decided to spend his time and effort on was a series of shorts called The Adventures of Biffle and Schuster. This is a non-existent comedy team based on many comedy teams who are also non-existent now. And these are old-fashioned shorts, very slapsticky. And I guess it's better for Mike to explain it to you, because one of the Trailers from Hell segments that he did was on Biffle and Schuster, and this is it.
Hi, I'm Mike Schlesinger, and this is a very special Trailers from Hell, because for the first time, when you see coming soon, we really mean it, because this is a picture that hasn't even been released yet. And how do I know? Because I made it. I have two insanely talented friends. Well, one's talented, the other's just insane. Will Ryan and Nick Santamaria. And several years ago, they created this typical 1930s comedy team called Biffle and Schuster. But they hadn't really done much with it. Then one day, I had a brainstorm. And as soon as I finished mopping up the floor, I called them up and I said, why don't we make a typical 1930s comedy short, just like one they would have done on an assembly line back in the 30s? They loved the idea. We did it. and a lot of people really liked it. But what can you do with one short? Can't even make applesauce. So I thought the only thing to do was bite the bullet and make 4 more. Figured that way we've at least got enough for a DVD, and I can take the 4 new ones and put them together into an ersatz feature. And so that's what you're going to see, the trailer for that feature. Oh, one more thing. I broke the 2 rules of the producers and paid for the whole thing myself. I decided to start with the standard being serious fake-out, while the normally sad Tannhauser overture puts you in mind of what's opera doc. And this also lets you know it's a period piece. We show how ubiquitous their introduction is by using 1 line each from different films.
Who are you?
Who are we? B-I-double-F-F-L Biffle. S-H-double-O-Ooster Schuster.
Biffle and Schuster.
Need we say more?
By the way, that's a real street sign in Berkeley, California. And this might be a good time to mention that if you're a distributor, hit pause, go get your checkbook, and come on back. I'll wait. We couldn't get into foreign film festivals because they want bleak, depressing, and foreign, not 2 guys in fedoras getting slapped, making stupid puns, and singing show tunes. Anyway, we then move on to a series of jokes, which establishes that yes, this is a film with actual jokes.
8 years I've been working my fingers to the bone, and what do I get? If you say bony fingers, I'll kill you.
We happen to be sensational. Did you see our last show?
I sure hope so.
And your eyes aren't deceiving you, one of the shorts is in color, and everyone worked incredibly hard to replicate that weird red and blue Cinecolor look. After a reminder that there are musical numbers, and that music you're listening to is played by the live band we had, we're into the slapstick. I'm probably overdoing it here. There's not as much as this would have you believe. But I am cognizant that we're selling this to modern audiences, and the kids like that stuff. And I even made a joke about the jokes that today's younger audiences wouldn't get.
I find this whole setup highly suspicious.
Highly suspicious. Isn't that the guy from Ethiopia?
Though ironically, that joke often did get a big laugh. And as we all know, everything is better with a gorilla in it. And this particular gorilla is Oscar-winning special effects genius Chris Walas, who also built the suit. Now, here are the individual titles of the 4 shorts that comprise the feature. I wanted to bill myself as Academy Award attendee, but even though that's factually accurate, I thought the Academy might not see the humor in it. And since I hate the way everybody's a visionary these days, especially the directors I've never heard of, I thought I'd prick that balloon and go with visionary goofball. That part is absolutely accurate. And since we intend to play art houses, I thought the coming soon card should make fun of that as well. And we end, as we must, with awards from phony film festivals, because that's just how visionary goofballs roll.
Coming soon. Check your local newspaper for showtimes.
When Mike was in the hospital, I tried very hard to get someone there at the hospital to page Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine. I wouldn't do that. The gentleman who played Benny Biffle in those films, Nick Santa Maria, wanted to be here and talk about the visionary goofball who made them. Family obligations kept him away, but he did send this video in all the way from Florida.
You know, I never liked Michael Schlesinger. I love the guy. The guy gave me the greatest job I ever had. In 50 years of show business, he gave me the greatest job I ever had. He gave me Benny Biffle in the Biffle and Schuster shorts. And I can speak for my late great partner and friend, Will Ryan, because he felt the same way.
After making 5 Biffle and Schuster shorts, Mike decided it was time to make a full-length feature without those 2 knuckleheads. Among the stars of it was one of his favorite leading ladies. Please welcome Saratoga Valentine.
It's so great to see so many people here who love Michael. This is wonderful. Musso Franks, the Smokehouse, the Tam O'Shanter, Laurie's Prime Rib. Next to movies, I think a good prime rib was one of Michael's favorite things. Whenever there was a waiter or waitress who asked him how he'd like his meat, he'd say, mooing. It invariably got a laugh. He liked raw meat. Andy Parks, I have to thank you for introducing me to Michael Schlesinger. It was either after The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra or after Trail of the Screaming Forehead. We hit it off right away, and not just because I said my name was Sarah Ballantyne. He immediately said, "Oh, there was a great comedian named Ballantyne. Did you know him?" And I said, "No, he was my father." We had a great love for old movies as well as old restaurants. And he was one of the most knowledgeable people I ever knew. We talked about films constantly, and we liked to share old jokes and old puns, as you all did. I'm sure you all did. I couldn't help but laugh, but I was remembering one of our last dinners. I was telling Michael how much I enjoyed Joey Brown, and I was watching some movie, and I wish I could tell you which it was, but he's seducing this starlet, and the butler comes in to take their order, and he said, "I'll have a bottle of champagne, please." And the butler said, "What year, sir?" And he said, "Right now, I'm not gonna live forever." And Michael and I both loved that kind of humor.
Since we lost Mike in January, a number of his friends have made donations in his name to organizations that do good work preserving and exhibiting classic movies. Other folks have asked where they can send money in remembrance of our friend. UCLA Film and Television Archive and the Library of Congress are good choices, but you're sitting in a great one. Since 1984, the American Cinematheque has been an independent, nonprofit cultural organization offering us the best in cinema. Mike was a big supporter of it, and any employee on the premises will be delighted to sell you a membership, or you can join online. When we asked the folks here if we could use their theater here to say goodbye to a beloved one, they asked us one question: when do you want it? We want to thank the organization, and we thank Grant Moninger, Lyric Ludke, Chris Lamar, John Hagelson, and Ryan Marker, and everyone else here. The projectionists for today are Ben Tucker and Ivan Rothberg. Thank you all. Now, I've been referring to Mike as one of the best friends movies ever had. We're now going to talk about one of the best friends Mike ever had. This is a little morbid, but you'll all understand what I'm about to say. If I ever found myself in a hospital bed with as dire a prognosis as Mike had, I would pray to have a friend as good as our final speaker. Please show your love for Ms. Catherine Dickerson.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Michael loved to tease me, telling me that I ruined his reputation. Well, I guess today I will be ruining it a little more. On the evening of July 17th, 2015, I found myself at the Egyptian Theater to see the film It's a Mad, Mad, Mad Man. I had never been to the Egyptian, nor had I ever seen this film. I sat down in an aisle seat, not knowing what to expect. I remember a man slowly passing by me as he made his way down the stairs, toward the stage, and picked up a microphone. This man spoke with good humor and great knowledge of clearly a film close to his heart. He finished his introduction and slowly made the climb back up the stairs from which he had come. He stopped short of my aisle seat and surprisingly sat down in front of me. During the intermission, I tapped this man on the shoulder and thanked him for giving such a wonderful introduction to the film. He slowly half-turned in his seat as I continued to say, "I didn't know the theater allowed employees to stay for the film." It was at this moment this man turned all the way in his seat and put out his hand for me to shake. As he said in a very authoritative voice, "I'm Mike Schlesinger. I brought the film." I extended my hand and said, "Well, I'm Catherine Dickerson." "You mean you brought the film down from the shelf in that room up there, pointing to the projector's window?" I remember the look on his face. It was priceless. At this point, many people were standing over Michael, trying to get his attention, interrupting, asking questions, making small talk. He turned back in his seat toward the group to answer their questions. The film ended, and I snuck out as the credits rolled. I sat in my car thinking, who was that man? Of course, I looked up his name in Facebook right then and there, and to my embarrassment, he wasn't, I realized, an employee of the theater. I quickly instant messaged Michael with an apology, explaining I didn't know who you were, and I didn't make the connection that you were in the film industry. Signed, the blonde behind you. By the way, I think this is why he later nicknamed me his Hitchcock blonde. After 20 minutes later, he wrote back, would you like to go out to dinner? Of course I said yes. I am grateful for the many quiet dinners we shared over the years, the film festivals we attended, and the live theater and music we experienced. I want to share with you that the Michael I knew and loved, and this is where I ruined his reputation, was sensitive, shy, compassionate, loving, generous with his time and knowledge. He was a romantic, sweet, thoughtful. He made me laugh. He loved my mother and never missed her birthday or Mother's Day to celebrate her and make her feel special. I miss him terribly. Who would have known that so many years later, Michael and I would be in Cedar's intensive care unit. We held hands on that final night, the last night that he would be able to speak to me. The room was quiet and peaceful. The light was low. There was no pain. Michael began whispering, who would have thought, all those years ago, Catherine, a chance meeting at the Egyptian would have brought us to this. So surprised, I turned to him and said, you remember that? And he replied, I can't seem to stop thinking of it. I'm now going to take my seat right there when the movie begins. That's the seat that Michael and I sat on our first date. And we also had dinner around the corner at Locanda Portofino 10 years ago. Thank you.
Fortunately, we have just the right thing to lighten our lives coming up here. We're going to take an intermission, and at 2 o'clock, we're running Mike's favorite movie, and we're going to be pleased to have the best friend Stanley Kramer ever had to help introduce it. His wife and the guardian of his legacy, Karen Sharp Kramer, is with us in the house. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Evanier. For those of you just joining us, some of us just spent a wonderful hour in this room remembering a friend of mine. Remembering a friend of ours named Mike. That's my top one. Remembering a friend of ours named Mike Schlesinger. He was a great filmmaker. If you don't know Mike Schlesinger, we videotaped the ceremony. It'll be on YouTube in a couple of weeks. Watch it, and you're going to really have an admiration for this gentleman that I can't begin to describe. When Mike passed away earlier this year, a bunch of us all had the same idea at the same time. It was, hey, let's get a theater, and let's do a tribute to Mike, and let's show his favorite movie, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. This happens to also be my favorite movie as well. Did I say introduce Mark Evanier? This is my favorite movie as well. I first saw this film on November 23rd, 1963. The day after Lee Harvey Oswald shot John F. Kennedy, the day before Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald. It was a very strange weekend in this country. It was a weekend where everybody thought the world was coming to an end, America was doomed, things were all terrible. Thank God it isn't like that anymore. It was a perfect movie to cheer us all up, and it changed my life greatly. I'm a writer of television and comic books and super cartoons, and I have tried to work with everyone in this movie I could possibly work with. I've got about half of them. And it's amazing the talent in this film. It is a place to take younger people, a movie to show younger people, to show them who Sid Caesar was, who Milton Berle was, who Jonathan Winters was. And the great part of this movie is just that the interaction of these people, the expressions on their faces. And I've seen this movie about 8 million times. Mike Schlesinger, who I mentioned, and myself, and a fellow named Paul Scrabo, who is here someplace, we did the commentary track on the Criterion DVD and Blu-ray set. If you're interested in this film, I don't recommend showing people this movie on a small screen for the first time. I think this needs a big screen with a big audience, and then you can watch the Criterion DVD. This Criterion is a class act, and the lady who produced that DVD is here, Karen Stedler. Karen, where are you? You're someplace. Applaud this woman, please. Karen. As I said, Mike loved this film. Mike loved all the Stanley Kramer films. And we are very honored and pleased to have with us tonight the person who knew Stanley the best, his wife for many years, who is now the protector of his estate, his legacy. She does all these wonderful things going around, promoting the film, reminding people about what Stanley made, making sure the films are projected properly and they're properly restored and presented. And I am really delighted to have this. Would you welcome Ms. Karen Sharp-Kramer.
Thank you, Mark. I just had my hip replaced 4 weeks ago, so I'm out. It's such a pleasure to be here and see such a fantastic audience. You know, I think we can all agree that this has been a memorable afternoon. Put together by this terrific man over here, Mark Evanier, and his friends of Michael. What a great tribute. I'm sorry some of you guys missed it. It was worth staying for. Mike was a passionate champion of film, and he was so very knowledgeable about it. You know something, I think, well, I guess I have to say, was it really his favorite film? Yeah. Oh, that makes me so happy, because I know he loved many older films, but to hear that it was his favorite is an honor for me. For the last 20 years, I have been producing all the premieres and anniversaries and screenings with cast and crew from Mad World. And I would always see Mike right front and center. I didn't know who the hell that was for a long time. Who is that guy? Well, I got to know him and spent a little time with him. And I so appreciated him and respected him, and I'm sure as hell gonna miss him. Well, we are having this screening today in honor of Michael. That's what this is about. Now, Stanley Kramer was a social justice filmmaker. He made 35 films of content. Films like Judgment, Nuremberg, Inherit the Wind, On the Beach, High Noon, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, films like that. Thank you. Those 35 films garnered 85 Oscar nominations and 16 wins. But he wasn't very known for comedy. Now, his favorite critic from the New York Times was having lunch with Stanley one day, and he said, "You know, Stanley, we critics, well, we like to get together and talk about you guys, you know? And we think you're the most influential filmmaker of the 20th century. But there is one thing we all agree, that you could never, ever produce and direct a comedy." And that was the, "oh yeah?" moment for Stanley. So he set out to make the comedy of all comedies. And I think he accomplished his goal. This film has a lot of firsts in it. It was the first time that Stanley had a theater built, the Hollywood Cinerama Dome, to open his film. When the film was completed, it was 5 hours long. Stanley was a terrific editor. He had an editor, but he was also a great editor himself. So he edited the film down, and I'm going to be not exactly right about the timing of this, but almost 4 hours with intermission. Now, in my long life, I'm 91. I've been in this industry since 1952 when I made my debut as an actor. I had never seen a film that had an interactive intermission. And you probably haven't seen it that often either, because the very first week when this film opened, the intermission was about 15-20 minutes long, and Stanley didn't want you to lose the continuity of the film. So we had the police calls telling where they were, where the characters were when we had intermission. So that first week, a woman in the bathroom heard this man's voice over the loudspeaker, and she went screaming into the lobby, "There's a man in the bathroom! There's a man in the bathroom!" Caused a huge commotion. So Stanley took it out, and it never did that again until I came along, and I produced the 40th anniversary at the Cinerama Dome, and I had it put back. So, I don't know if it's in today's film or not, so if you hear, ladies, a voice in the bathroom, it's just part of the show, folks. Part of the show. So the other firsts were, or are, the credits. To my knowledge, it was the first time that animation was used in credits and kind of told you the story as you went along anyway. That was a first. The stunts were real. We didn't have the technology in those days as we have today. And the interesting thing is that nobody got hurt doing those stunts. And those car chases have been copied in films ever since. Let's see what else. I'm going to mention this because nobody ever mentions the score. Ernest Gold score. I think it is one of the best things Ernest Gold ever wrote, and I think it's such an important part of this film. Credits to okay. And the opening of the premiere at the Hollywood Cinerama Dome, debuting the theater as well as the film. You know, in 1963, that's 62 years ago, when this film debuted, it was a happening. We didn't have premieres that often like we do today, or screenings like we have today. So when you had a premiere, it was formal, and everybody in town who was anybody in the industry was there. It's a pretty big house. I think it seats over 700 people. Anyway, but President Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy had accepted the invitation to attend the opening night. Wow. And they called Stanley a few days before the opening to say that they couldn't be at the opening because they had to go to Dallas. And of course we know that the assassination happened a few days after the opening of this film. And it played in New York at the Warner Theater. I believe it was the Warner Theater. Some of you people who know more about this than I do would probably say, well, that's not right. Well, all right, let's just say the Warner. For 2 years. And I know it played at the Cinerama Dome for 2 years. And as Billy Crystal always has told me, he said, that film helped heal a nation. And I want to say this. When you think about it's a mad, 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 mad world, The title? It was A Mad California. But when you think about that title, you know, it really is a mad, 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 mad world. Is it not? What we're living through right now? Just thought I'd say that. There is another first, Jonathan Winters. It was his very first film. And I'm going to tell my favorite story. And it was also Michael's favorite story. And you probably have heard this already, people who've come to some of these screenings, because I usually tell it. Jonathan Winters was completely unknown when he made Mad World. Stanley saw him, and he was great at discovering talent. Stanley discovered Marlon Brando, Kirk Douglas, Grace Kelly, Sophia Loren, and giving these people their first break in show business, and they become our dinosaurs, you know. So Stanley saw Jonathan on a late night television, the Jack Parr Show, and he called it up and said, "Mr. Winters, my name is Stanley Kramer, and I'm making this film, and it's got Spencer Tracy and whatever." And Jonathan heard the list of people, and he said, "Mr. Kramer, look, I am not an actor, and Spencer Tracy, and Milton Berle, and and Mickey, no, I just can't do it." And Stanley kept trying to argue with him, and he said, "No, I can't." He said, "Well, okay, Mr. Kramer, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I just got out of the mental institution, and they have declared me certifiably insane." He said, "Mr. Winters, every actor I've ever worked with is certifiably insane. I think you'll do just fine." And he did. For me, he stole the whole damn movie. That's just my taste. And I will tell you something else about Jonathan. All of these comedians were just great to me. Whenever I said I'm doing a screening or I'm doing an anniversary, they would always show up. They loved Stanley and they loved the film. But Jonathan, when Stanley was not well and in his final year, he knew that I put Stanley to bed around 9 o'clock every night. He would call me every single night, a little after 9, to talk to me about a million things, but mainly to make me laugh. I love that man. He deserves all the credit he could ever have for being a great human being, besides being a very funny and wonderful actor. So, this film has become a very popular film, even more so now than it was when it first came out 62 years ago. Has a big fan base even in Europe. But today, this is a very special screening because this one belongs to Mike.
Well, briefly, let me just tell you that, one important thing that she left out about this film. In this movie, you will see something you won't see for a long time. You will see cars driving up Pacific Coast Highway. I also want to tell you that the film starts with an overture, so there'll be nothing on the screen for the first minute or two. The projectionist is not goofing off. That's how it is. It's my favorite film, and I will use any excuse to see it. I'm just sorry that Mike Schlesinger is not here. Let the games begin. Thank you.